Last episode, we finally finished off the bottom half of the base, and as if by magic, we found a bat in it, and so I think it's only fair that we call it the Bat Cave. No, we're not doing that. Anyway, we currently don't have an easy accessible way into the cave, and so we need to make ourselves an elevator, rather than just flying in. Ugh, it's just not fun though. Welcome back to SIEVELESS. Who are you talking to? Welcome back. Episode 8. So I've got a few things planned today, but I think the biggest thing that we're going to plan is this place over here. The smokestack that I've been talking about for the last few episodes is finally going to be actually used for something. Right now it's just been the Megatorch storage and my Gears, which I'll be honest, it all just needs to move. It all just needs to be gone by today's episode. And that should also give us access to the so-called Bat Cave. In fact, I think that's the perfect name for it since we found a bat last episode. But one of the first things that I want to do is grab a smithing table and turn this area here into a bit more of a habitable area. Similar to what we've done over here with some of the doohickeys and gadgets. But it'd be nice to actually move into this space as well. So for now, I'm only going to put the smithing table here, but this will definitely expand. And I've been meaning to do it, but I really want to get access to step height. On my boots, I don't have anything, but I do have an empty socket because I reforged it using Apotheosis. Now, if I type step, I can't see anything. However, you'll see in the search, I can type $search and it will search tooltip. So if I type $step, I will find anything that has a tooltip that contains the word step. So in this case, some of our gems actually have step height. Now, I only need, in fact, I am actually going to go for the lower one, the chipped version. I believe this is one of the gems that we got the loot pinata on, so that's why we have so many. But 0.5 step assist should take us to the full block. So in fact, let's try that. If I take off my boots and then add them onto here, and then wear them again, I should now be able to walk up blocks. Perfect. Hey, that's so awesome. Look, we can now finally move without having to jump up blocks. So let's move this chest over here so we can make some space for the elevator. I'm going to upgrade it to the basic tier, and if I right click it there, it turns into the sophisticated storage one, which now means I can use my super packing tape and move this elsewhere without it losing its inventory. And I'll plonk it down just over here. I'll also move the Megatorch as well. Another gym-terruption incoming. Make sure that if you're enjoying the video to like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel, and hype if you're on mobile. See, it was a short one today. Guys, don't complain, don't complain. It's only a little short one. Back to the video. So the first thing that I want to do to build this elevator is to work out the internals first and then work out the outside with things like windows, window ledges, all these types of things. I think it'll be a lot easier to do once we've got the basic elevator in place. But I'm not too sure. Maybe that decision will end up hurting me down the line. For the build, I wanted to get some metal girders. We required plates, which means we use the engineer's hammer, and then we could craft as many as we wanted. If I use the stone cutter and place iron ingots, I can get blocks of industrial iron, and I really like this texture. It's from Create. It looks perfect for these kind of builds, and it also has that really nice shine to it from the shaders. And I thought, since we're going for that Create elevator feel, I wanted to make some more Create blocks. So I ended up crafting half a stack of andesite casing. Okay, so let's begin crafting out the elevator, and I could do a 4x4 area, or I could spread it out to the outsides. I'm thinking that the best way will probably be to keep it all on the outside as well. In fact, I'll use this casing right now to mark out where I'm going to place this. Oh wow, that's all of my casing, whoops. I'm thinking to keep this 3 tall, and so I started designing the basic shell for our elevator. I used the industrial iron as the roof block for this, and I think it worked really well. Okay, so I think this is quite a nice design. It's a little bit basic right now. I do want to add some like furnishings, maybe some trapdoors on the outside to make it look like ledges so you don't fall off. But I think for a basic idea, that's quite cool. We also need something to control the elevator, and that's where I've crafted the contraption controls. Traditionally, they're used to control what's actually moving on a contraption, but if you place it on an elevator, it will actually turn into an elevator contraption block, and you can control the elevator using this, but I'll show you a little bit more about that later. The way that the elevator knows where it's facing is that you need to place somewhere on your elevator a redstone contact. So let's say I've got a mini elevator here, it's a 2x2. Somewhere out of this, I need to be facing a redstone contact, and on the other side, every single floor needs to have one of these redstone contacts. The elevator system from Create is really smart, and so it will actually detect how many redstone contacts you have and associate a floor number with them. And you can change this later on. I think the best thing that we can do now is actually clear out some of the doorways of where we're going to be having the elevator stop off. So here's the second floor, and that will help us determine where we're going to be placing these redstone contacts. And this is the top floor. We'll knock this one out as well. I might as well also knock this all the way down to the Bat Cave over there so we can test the contacts there as well. And the last block here. So I've marked out where the elevator is going to be landing. Now, obviously, it's going to go down one more block so it's reaching the ground level. But I'm thinking in terms of doorway, we probably want the doorway to be facing this way. So we're going to need an elevator that's going to actually have multiple entrances. So that's something to think about when we're building in all the fixtures. But I think that looks good. I'll definitely have to pizzazz up this area though. So then we needed to add the redstone contacts to each floor. Okay, I don't think that looks too bad. If I have the redstone contact in line with the whole of my andesite casing, I think that still looks okay. We might have to put something on here so it doesn't look too weird. I'll have to think about it. Maybe an industrial iron block with a seat on top? Yeah, I think that would look a lot better, so I'll do that. So you'll see this is what I mean about the redstone contact. It's going to have to be facing on the outside, so I'm going to have to mask this a little bit. I think this one in its position how it is, it's actually okay with this azalea leaf on top, but we might have to do something else for the other ones. But we'll have to see how that works. So let's pop in the other redstone contacts for the different floors. And remember, the redstone contact for the floor has to be the same level as your redstone contact on your elevator. So on the second floor, I'm going to need it in line with the floor, and this is where I'm going to have it. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. We'll also do it for this one as well, and knocking out that one and placing a redstone contact there. Perfect. We also need to connect our contraption with superglue from Create. Now beforehand, when I was building my moss farm, I used linear chassis, and you could use that here, but superglue allows you to get finer detail. So with superglue, you need to select the first and last point, and it will all build it together. So for example, here, I want to do the middle section. So I select my start point there, and I select my end point there, and that will now glue the entire contraption. If I hold superglue in my hand, I can see what's glued. Now that's great, but it's not going to glue these edge pieces here, so I need to do them somehow. The best way I can do that is by clicking here, and then over down here. When a glued part of the contraption touches another glued contraption, they then become linked. So I'm going to do that for all of the corners now. It doesn't matter that we've got missing blocks here because it will actually use the square. So if I add anything into this square, that will also become part of the contraption. And the last bit of gluing we need to do, perfect. So now, if I come away from all that, that looks like my entire contraption is now glued together. Now we need to go up to the top and sort out the elevator part of it. And I don't want this to be visible from the outside. Maybe in the future we'll do something cool and have some machinery. But I think for now, we'll just keep it in the middle. If I place my water wheel here as an example, we're now going to do what I showed off before, where you gear up your system to make it perform faster. And that uses larger cogwheels to smaller cogwheels and some andesite casing to block off connections. And I'll show that quickly as well. So we start off with the big gear going into the small gear, and that will make this small gear go quicker. If I place a big gear on that, that makes the big gear go quicker. And then I need to block off this connection here and place a small one down here, making it quicker again. And I'm going to keep repeating this. So I think that should be fast enough, and then we're going to place our elevator pulley just over here on this side. It would help if I placed it in the right direction. All we need to do now is give this water wheel some flowing water. So let's do that by just encasing this little bit here and then adding water like so. And you'll see the speed of the water wheel is quite slow, but when we've geared it up, this is actually performing quite quickly. And to actually test the elevator pulley, all we need to do now is right click, and that should connect. And you can see it connects because of this pulley line going down here, and it's actually touching the top of our elevator. And I can now see that it's working because the contraption controls over here have a number, and all of our redstone contacts have turned into elevator contacts. We're definitely going to have to hide them now. I didn't realize it would turn them into big redstone lamps, especially this one. That's awful. We'll figure that out afterwards. But for now, let's test if it's working. If I go into the elevator, I can use my mouse wheel to select which floor, which it works perfectly. It sees all 3 floors. And when I've selected a floor, I just need to right click the button. We've now got an elevator to the first floor. Let's try out the second floor as well. Oh, that's brilliant. Yes, it's working. And let's go all the way back down to the bottom floor here. This is working a treat. This is so cool. But we're not done yet. We want to actually place a redstone contact on the bottom floor as well. And I'm also going to show you a mini tip. Now, I want to just get rid of this elevator and try and escape it. There we go. I escaped it before it's actually gone up. And we can now place down the redstone contact in line with all of this. And I believe that is in line with everything else. Yeah, and it's turned straight into an elevator contact, so I can tell it is. So let me dig out this space again. And if I go into the elevator contact, I can actually set what floor identifier I want it to be. So in this case, I can now set it to maybe -2, -3. And to be honest with you, -1 makes the most sense at the moment. I can also add a floor description, so I'm going to call this one the Bat Cave. This bottom control allows you to control the doors on an elevator, and we can do that, but I think it requires us getting a bit more into Create. But that could be an option. Let me have a think about it. And that's great, but our elevator is on a completely different floor now. How do we get it over here? Well, if I give the elevator contact a redstone signal, it will now bring the elevator all the way down here. That is so cool. I love it. And we can see now on the contraption controls, the Batcave is now an option, and it's so cool. Now, because this is a contraption, we can actually place blocks inside this area and bring the elevator back down to it. And because the contraption isn't actually real in the world, it's a big entity, I can have multiple blocks inside of other blocks. And yes, it looks really weird when you've got 2 blocks occupying the same space. They sort of fight. It's called Z fighting, for those who are into graphics. But the main reason that I show that off is because instead of placing my button over on this side, I can actually place it on this side. And it might look strange for now, but if I did this on the other floor, it might make a little bit more sense. So if I go back up to floor 0 and maybe set that to floor 1 and escape it quickly, there we go. I could place the button on this side. And so let's say I didn't have access to this elevator because it was up in the sky. Oh, no, I'd have to reach for it. I'll have to think about this. Yeah, maybe that's not the best idea. I'm not entirely sure what we could do for that. Maybe some wireless redstone. Either way, we can figure that out in the coming episodes. To be honest, I think having a button there is actually quite helpful anyway. So let's get on to hiding the elevator contacts from the outside. I think the best bet is to place a copycat panel over the back of it and then use one of the basalt bricks, and that should hide it off. And if I place the back in like that, it does jut out a little bit, but I think that's okay. Especially in areas where it's really cramped and you can't see it anyway. Like so. And another. So I'm now going to dismantle the elevator by just right-clicking the elevator pulley here, and that puts it back in our world again. And it's probably broken that button. Yeah, it did. And that's okay, because right now we can actually improve our elevator. So there was that missing block here. If I place that, you'll also see the slime particles. That means it's connected via superglue to the rest of this contraption. I'll go and play around for a little bit and try and figure out a nice design for all of this. What would spruce trapdoors look like if they were on the outside of it? Ooh, I think that looks quite nice. Also going to grab a load of copycat panels because I've got an idea here. It's dangerous when I have ideas. So I then place copycat panels all over the same places I did with the spruce trapdoors. Yeah, I'm starting to like this. I think this looks a little bit more real. I just need to figure out something to put in the copycat panel, but to be honest, I actually prefer how it looks right now. Oh, that's so much better. Yep, so I was playing around with some glass designs, and I was using the chipped mod, and I found this one called small diamond leaded glass. I think that is the one that we're going to have to go for. This looks so cool. I did also try some of these other designs. I tried the oak barred glass on this one here. I didn't really like it, so I think we'll end up sticking with this one here. It looks really cool. Right, so let's give that a full go like so. Yeah, that's looking a lot more elevator-y. I'd like to do something with the top. It looks a little bit too square, but I think for now that looks quite cool. I really would like to get some of these train doors, and they work really well with elevators, and that requires train casing, which requires, what's this? Sturdy sheet, which is obsidian dust with spout, press, press. I think we could make this manually. We won't need too many, we'll need 4, so I think we could do this manually. I'm going to give this a go. We'll need to get ourselves a spout, and this will be temporary. What I'm going to do is place the depot there, spout on top with a shift right click, and we're going to pipe into our spout for now. How much does 1 obsidian make of obsidian dust? 4. Okay, so I actually think that'll be fine. We'll just take that. If I grab my configurator and turn this onto pull mode, we can then place our obsidian dust down here, and that should make our unprocessed sheets. It's looking good. 4 of them. Do I have a press? I'm sure I have a press somewhere. I think it's in the compact machine. Let me have a quick look. Oh, that's really weird. I guess I never crafted a press. Let's craft that and pop it onto this awful temporary contraption that I did say I was going to remove, and it will happen, don't worry. Oh, that's not too difficult. Just a block of iron, andesite casing, and a shaft. Right, that's easy. And I can take my depot from there as well. Now, normally you'd actually make a whole assembly line to create these sturdy sheets, where it actually goes through these entire processes, but you can do it manually. And considering we only need 4, I think that'll do. So if I place my press on the side over here, we've got enough stress for it. Place my depot over here. Pop 1 on. What happens? Does it press it twice? Okay, it presses it once, and then the second one should turn it into a mechanical sheet. Oh, sturdy sheet. Perfect. Right, okay, so that does work. Let's do that with the rest of these. And the last sheet. Done. Great. And I can actually pull the lava back into our tank over here. I just pull it into the pull mode, and there we go. We've got all the lava back in. See, no lava is lost on this channel, and we need some brass casings. Do I have any brass casings? I do. Perfect. So we can make 4 of them train casings like so. These actually look really nice. I quite like them. They'd be really nice to build with. But the main purpose that we were trying to make is the doors, and we need, I guess we just need to make a regular door. So if I craft the door with the train casing, I should get the train door. Great. Now, if you're not familiar with these, you're going to actually love how these look. So if I place them like so, but first of all, they look cool, and second of all, if I right-click them, they open, but they have this really cool animation where they pop out. But that is not the only thing. We can go back to that redstone contact and set which side doors open. Now, what way are we facing? We're facing east, so we just want the east side to open when the elevator arrives at this spot, because we're also going to have doors on this side. So if I now go over to this redstone contact, for example, and set this to be, what side is that? The south side. If I now set this to the south side only, actually, we will test all of these then. We'll do south on you and then south on you as well. And now activate the elevator and let's see if this now works with the elevator doors. Let's go to floor number 0. It closes all the doors and then only this set of doors should open. Oh, okay, that's really cool. That's really cool. Now let's go back down to the back cave and only those close and then only these set of doors should open. Oh, this is so sick. Look at that. That's awesome. Yeah, this elevator looks really ugly. You're going to have to bear with it for a little bit, but that is so cool. And every other floor should just open up these. Oh, I can actually manually open them. I didn't realize. Yes, that's so cool. I love it. I absolutely love it. Oh, we definitely need to remove this bar over here and actually make a proper staircase for it. If I place down some framed stairs like so and then just right click it with the block, that will take that form. Yeah, that looks a lot nicer. In fact, I could keep the bars, but I could keep them on the outside like this. So now we've got a proper entrance to this top floor over here and this room that has had no use so far. So now I want to pizzazz up the area, and the best tool for that is going to be the exchanging gadget from building tools. It's a bit like the building gadget that we had before, but this just exchanges blocks for other blocks. And of course, we're going to need to power this, so let's whack that into our energy cell. So the way that this works is I can now place down a block, for example, my stone brick here, and shift right click to now select that block. If I press G, I can now set how I want it to place that block. So for example, I could now set the range to 9 and replace all of, let's say, the dirt with my stone bricks. Now, obviously, I'm not going to do that, but I could. I could also turn fuzzy mode on so it doesn't actually care what block is going to be used. It just uses all of the blocks in that area. Now, we don't want that either. In this case, all we want is the connected area on, and we want the range to its bare minimum. And I guess we could just outline this area here with stone brick so it looks a little bit more official. Yeah, I quite like that. And let's change these stone up as well to stone brick. I converted all of that outside ring to stone brick and then made a little pathway off of it using that same stone brick. So I'm starting to like this now. We've got a little pathway coming in as well. I think that looks quite nice, but the exchanging gadget is also really nice because I can now exchange some of these stone bricks for the mossy versions and sprinkle them throughout the build like so. I think that looks a little bit better now. It's got a bit more texture. I could even place some mossy bricks over on the back side over here and contain all of this in. Okay, yeah, I think that looks really good. So when the elevator comes down to this place, we should now see how it fits in with the environment. And yeah, I think that just suits it. It looks really good. I'm going to break those and I guess we'll work on the outside now. Back to the main floor. I needed some spruce for this build, and so I flew out and used an angel block. The angel block just allows you to place a block in mid-air, and I connected a platform to it and grew the spruce tree out there. The main reason I did this was because I just didn't want podzol in my build. I actually don't know what it does with moss, but I didn't want to chance it anyway. 5 stacks should be enough, and it started raining, so I think that's the perfect time to head back inside. So I think my main idea will be to turn this smokestack into an actual smokestack by pulling it out by a block. What would that look like if I did all of that? Okay, it's going to merge in with this solar panel. I'm not entirely sure about it. Let's build this up by another block. Actually, let's do 2 blocks. Something funny that I actually forgot was that these glowstone batteries should actually have a top on them of stone slabs. And I completely forgot that when I pasted it in, it was actually 1 level too low. And so I missed the tops of this. So if I go away from all that, I think that should look a little bit better. Yeah, definitely. I didn't realize until a couple of episodes ago. Right, and this will be the layer that I want to pull out by a block. Because now we're no longer touching those iron bars down there, and we're not touching the solar panel either. I think I need to connect this ring a little bit to make it look a little bit smoother. Yeah, I think that looks better. Great, and now that's done, let's just wand up by a block, and let's see what that's looking like. Yeah, I think that looks fine, that's what I'm going for. I guess we'll see how it comes together, but I do like that. And I wanted a ring around, probably around here. So let me just try that for a second and see how that would look. Oh, I didn't realise the water wheel's poking through here. We're going to ignore that. That's going to be a feature of the build from now on. Okay, I like the ring there. It's definitely going to need some detail work to actually make it fit in, but I do like it there. I think the best way to make that fit in would be to pop that down and then some girders, connecting it to the base of the building. Maybe something like that. Let's try that out. And then maybe some fence posts on top, some slabs there to make it look a little bit more form. Oh, I definitely prefer that. That looks so much nicer. Okay, I've gone with something that I'm happy with. I'm not going to use the fence posts. I'm just going to droop this down by 1/2 a block there. So we're going to have that ring going around the whole way. And I'm going to have this girder pattern on every single side, minus the back side, which I think would look better if I actually had this just be an open stained glass window. We'll have to try it. But for now, let's fill in these bits. Oh, now obviously on this side, it's going to be a bit awkward because we've got that iron bar and I don't want it to link up like that. So, oh, I'm not entirely sure. We might just have to do this. and just have the girder touching this other bit here. Yeah, I don't think that looks too bad. In fact, it actually looks a little bit more hectic, which is more of the solar punk theme that I wanted. So I'll skip the boring bit of me copying that design. I basically just repeated it all over the rest of the smokestack. At this point, I also knew that I was going to be placing in windows, so I started tearing out the center pieces of the smokestack and tried to figure out what kind of glass texture we'd be using that would piece this all together with the basalt bricks. Okay, I'm liking it. I also kind of like the idea of this exposed create mechanisms. If I go over this side where I'm going to have some stained glass as well, but I don't know what color I should use. I'm thinking to go for the exact same as I was doing for the solar panels. It would match. I'm going to do the exact same one that I've got here. Tiled light blue stained glass. Let's see if I've got any left. Okay, so let's plug these in and see how that looks. Oh, yeah. That is looking super cool. I love it. I love it. This tower now looks like it was a smokestack and now it's been repurposed to be an elevator shaft. I love it. I had a little bit of a debate about this bottom bit. Now, obviously, you can still see that elevator contact there. And I didn't want it to poke over the balcony. So I've used trapdoors and signs because I think they work well. And they don't jut out too far, so I think it should be okay. You can still walk past this quite normally. But a few leaves drooping down would help that go a little bit further as well. Or would it? He said, let's try that out. Yeah, I really like that now. It looks slightly overgrown now that I've got the azalea leaves on there. But I think that looks really cool. Let's have a look from the front as well. That looks so cool. I love it. I'm going to whack some more leaves on it. I need to get some more azalea leaves. But that is looking perfect. That is exactly how I wanted it. Oh, and we can hide the water wheel with that. Perfect. I didn't even think about that. Okay, that is all the leaves on there. I don't know whether I overcooked this one. You guys are going to have to let me know, but I think it still fits in with all the build. I might remove a little bit of the leaves just to make it highlight a little bit, but that is so cool. I love it. We've now got a full elevator and full access to the Batcave. This episode's so cool. But I really want to do some texturing work on the basalt brick because right now it's just using the basic one that we said earlier. I found two materials that look exactly like the basalt brick, the flat basalt tiles and then the cracked basalt brick. So I'm going to use the exchanging gadget to do that. I've already done it over here and it looks really nice. I was really happy with this texturing. So I then got to texturing my basalt bricks. I just picked a block and then occasionally scattered it around. I didn't really have any rhyme or reason or strategy for this. I just added it in places where I felt like it fits. Perfect, we've now finished the smokestack. I think this build is now fully put together and I'm very happy with that. Ooh, a couple of episodes ago I got some industrial hemp as it was a really good resource to get in string, but actually I realised there was some decoration that I forgot to add. If I craft these hemp rope coils, I can connect some of our structural cable connectors over here using that, and so if I place it like so, we get this hanging rope look, and I can connect this one over to this side as well, and it doesn't do anything, but it just looks so cool. So let's have a look at our build now from the outside. I'm loving this. This is so cool. One of my favorite builds that I've ever built in Minecraft. I'm not just saying that, I genuinely think so. I'm so happy and chuffed with this. I've just realised I'm only on 20% charge for my jetpack. We used an absolute ton of the fuel doing all of that. So it's time to charge that back up again. I guess I could also get rid of my temporary ladder setup over here as well, because now we've got access to the second floor. I think that is just so much neater than this. And it gives us two spots here to place some stuff. Now, last episode, I said off camera I was going to sort out auto crafting. I somewhat lied. Instead, I learned a lot about P2P tunnels. And everyone's going to click off the video. Please don't click on the video. I'm going to show you it and I'm going to try and explain it my way to see if it makes sense to you, because I finally figured it out. I finally understand it. So I just taught a massive chunk in our base right now. I said this was going to be the auto crafting room, and it will be, but we need it connecting to the factory floor down here. And I need all of my auto crafting set upstairs, but I still need access to these machines to have pattern providers on them so I can do automated crushing recipes, for example, or automated smelting. And if you remember me saying last episode, this Fluix ME cable can only hold 8 channels. Here's the smart variant of that, which shows those channels in action. But something I didn't tell you is that if you actually have run out of channels, it will tell you in here. And we might demonstrate that a little bit later. So right now I've got my dense cable here connected up to 3 channels. But let's first sort out our auto crafting setup. If you remember last episode, I explained that if you have a pattern provider next to a molecular assembler, that's what does the crafting. And I also mentioned that if you have it on direction mode, it will only interact with that block. And if you have it on directionless mode, like so, it will interact with any of the blocks around it. Meaning that one pattern provider can now start crafting 4 times as quicker because it's now got 4 molecular assemblers. I'm going to make a design that's quite popular where I place 2 pattern providers like so and then 2 molecular assemblers. Meaning that each pattern provider has 2 molecular assemblers attached to it, so it speeds up crafting by 2 times rather than if I just had that setup. I can then stack that on top of each other in an alternating fashion like so. And now every pattern provider is actually connected to 3. I've got one here, and then one round the back over here, which will speed up crafting significantly. I'm going to repeat that again, so we should end up with 8 of these pattern providers in total and 8 molecular assemblers in total. Now the only thing on all of this system here that uses up channels are the pattern providers. The molecular assemblers don't use them, but they will use up power from the network. So that means I could still connect everything with the FluixME cable and that would be fine. I also want to put my crafting storage over here. And you could create a massive multi-block of this storage. However, I've always done it a little bit differently and had multiple CPUs running. And the way that you make multiple CPUs is just by having 2 different storages. So these are 4K storages. So right now, this CPU here is 8K and this CPU is 8K, and I have 2 8K CPUs, as opposed to one CPU that has 16K storage. Now there's also a thing called a crafting co-processing unit, and I didn't cover this last episode, but it says here, this allows them to keep up with machines that process quickly. An example of that is a pattern provider surrounded by molecular assemblers, which is exactly what we're trying to do. It's going to be able to push ingredients much faster than a single assembler. And these connect with your storage to make the full CPU. And I'm going to have 4 of these set up with some cable in between them to link them all together. And that will use 4 channels, but I'll have 4 CPUs running. Now you'll probably notice a problem. This is using 8 channels and this is using 4 channels. We can't connect them together because that will use 12 channels and this cable can only take 8. So this is where I could use dense cable all the way through. And that would be completely valid, but it might be quite expensive. Instead, I'm going to use dense cable on just the connection between all of these things. So for example, I'm going to connect this one up, and that will be able to carry both of these channels. Instead of having that over there, I'm going to connect up the dense cable over here and instead make the wire over down there. Now, to avoid it connecting to that molecular assembler, you can craft cable anchors, which is one of these cutting knives mixed with any kind of ingot. I always craft the nether quartz version. There's no reason, it's cheaper because we can get nether quartz easier. And I can place that over there and that will block the connection, meaning that I've got my 4 channels coming through here and then the 8 channels here are being connected to this side of the dense cable. So I hope you're following so far. Let's connect all of that up. And this is where I could connect up that dense cable using dense cable to one side of the controller. But this is my foray into P2P tunneling, so I'm going to try and explain how this works. I'm going to set up a controller here, and this is just going to be a cable transfer network. Every single controller is a separate network. I just want a controller that's going to just be able to transfer network connections. This is raw connections. This is going to be for network connections. If I connected both this controller and this controller with the same cable, everything turns red. In fact, my shaders make that look a lot more scary than it actually is. But if I plop a P2P tunnel in between them, that will be fine. Now this controller here will actually run out of power. There's nothing powering this controller because it's a separate network. This is just one of the connections on that network, and this controller doesn't have any power. In fact, if I break this and place it again, you'll see its device offline and it's got no power going in. Now I could power this network separately by bringing out my energy cable and just plonking it into the side of it, but there is something really interesting. Now if I try to connect to that network, everything goes red again, but if I pop this quartz fiber on this side over here, quartz fiber only transfers power. It will not transfer any network connections. So now I'm able to power this controller with this controller down here, providing the energy to that controller. I hope you're with me so far. And remember I said last episode, every single face of this controller has 32 channels. Meaning that if we had this dense cable, we can get all of those channels coming out of it. But I'm going to show you something with P2P that's actually really interesting that no one really talks about. In fact, I'm just going to remove this dense cable for now. So if I come out of this controller and place a P2P tunnel here, that will take this network's connection up to this network over here. And the way that it knows that is by using a memory card. If I shift right click, it will set a configuration on here. You'll see in the top frequency A111, and I can right click on this and it will now be linked to the same frequency. So I've got 32 channels touching this face. I can now bring out 32 channels. So if I have my dense cable over here with the cable anchor just there, it says here carried channels 12. So we're basically taking the 32 channels that could go into here, pulling that out with a P2P tunnel and now moving that over here. So it's as if we had the controller just right here and we have access to those 32 channels. Another thing that I can do is actually pull out that same exact P2P connection and have it on these machines over here. So let's link up this interface over here and use the exact same P2P tunnel and place it over here. So we've still got that A1111 frequency and connect that up. So now we're connecting this one channel over here and 12 channels over here. And if I look down here, it will say carried channels 13. So I'm actually using that P2P channel twice to try and get as many connections to it as possible. I'm also going to have some over here and connect up this as well. So I've just jiggled it around a little bit and tried to make this controller in line over here so it looks a little bit neater, and I'm quite happy with that. And now that we've sorted all of that out, I can now begin to add all of my patterns back into the system. And because we've got so much more pattern space, I can also add some more patterns. Beforehand, we were running out. So what can I get? One of the main recipes I want to get is the pattern provider over here. And now that we've got our entire process assembly line and our auto crafting all hooked up to this network, we should be able to craft ourselves all of the pattern providers we need for all the rest of the machines. Oh, it seems to be working. Everything seems to look okay for this, and it's still crafting and still making them. Actually, whilst I'm here, I had a comment last episode that was really interesting. Now, obviously, if we go back to this SFM, I was using a results barrel and piping that directly into the pattern provider. I totally forgot. I can actually just place the pattern provider as the results thing. So all of the items instantly go into the pattern provider, meaning that we see them instantly in the system without having to use this logistical transporter. So I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to pull the disk out before I do anything because that tends to be safer. Take all of this away, place my pattern provider like so. Now link up my cable again. So now that is now set as the results. And if I pop my disk back in, we can actually test this out by crafting up some more logic circuits. Let's craft up 16 of them to be precise. And now hopefully when they get crafted, they should just go straight in the pattern provider and we should see them in our system. Okay, so I had a little bit of a mishap and I want you to be aware of it. First of all, this hopper in here meant that because our ME pattern provider didn't have a direction, it was trying to put it into the hopper. So I needed to set the direction to be facing the barrel. Now I messed up in this clip and had it set to down. So just make sure that that arrow is facing the barrel. I do fix this after. Secondly, if you're going to change, place or remove any of your items on the SFM network, my advice for you is to go into your Super Factory Manager and press Rebuild Cable Network. For some reason, it was just voiding the outputs. And I don't entirely know why, but I think it thought the barrel was still there. So it was trying to place them into the barrel that didn't exist, so it would just void them. So if that does happen, just go into your crafting status and cancel your existing craft. And we'll just craft up another batch of 16 just to make sure that that's now working now that I've rebuilt the network cache. Okay, perfect. Right, that's now working. You can see in the top right corner, it's now crafted all of those up. So let's patch all of this back up. And we've now sorted that all out. Okay. I then added pattern providers to every single one of our other machines from Mechanism and our auto smelter. That includes the enrichment chamber, the metallurgic infuser, and the crusher. I made sure that every single pattern provider was facing down so that it would output all of the input items into the machines directly. And on every single one of these machines, I want to go inside, open the config, and I want to reset them all. I can do that by holding Shift and reset all. I want to add auto input on and auto output on as well. And I want to input and output from the top. So all of the items will come in from the top and they will also go out into the pattern provider from this block here. And I'm going to set that up with every single one of these machines as well. And that's really easy. All we need to do is just clear the side config and input output auto eject. And I'll just keep doing that for every single one of these Mechanism machines. The infusing factory is going to have a completely different thing, but I'm going to show that off another episode. We can't do that right now, otherwise the episode will get too full. But for these machines and the furnace, that is all sorted. Let's make a recipe to test this out. We're going to try out that crusher and we're going to use cobblestone to gravel as a recipe. So if I encode that pattern over here, make sure it's a processing pattern, and I place that inside the crushing factory like so, I can now auto craft gravel. So let's say we want a stack. Press start and we should see gravel going in and we should see it auto output up and we're gaining gravel. We've now figured out our auto crafting system and we can add recipes for any kind of crushing, smelting or whatever we like. Now, obviously, right now, this looks terrible. We've got all of this exposed wiring and it looks awful, but we can fix that. And the way that we fix it is by crafting cable facades. You use whatever block you want and then surround it with the cable anchors that we made earlier. So let's say right now, I've got a bunch of blue terracotta bricks ones. I can now right click on the cables and that will facade them, meaning that they still exist, but they're now hidden. And that is so handy. I can even do it to this one over here and the connection will still pass through. If you want to see your cable connections, you can craft the network tool from Applied Energistics, and if you hold it in your hand, you'll now see every single one of the facades. So now I can see what is a facade, what's real, what's not. So right now, I'm going to craft myself up some more, and we're going to try and facade off this entire base. And so the neat thing is that I can either use the network tool to pull all these out, or I can just right-click with a wrench, and I'll get the item back as well. Like that. And we've now done this bottom floor. It is looking so much neater. We've got some exposed ones up here, so we can just facade that. We can go up to our second floor, and that'll be an easy job. Just need to place some facades on there and there. Block all of this in. And then finally, just add some of the cable facades on the top of that. And now this room's looking good as well. We've also fixed up the outside area here, and when I hold the network tool, you can see how much of a mess it actually is. But the facades help so much. So this room is actually looking really good now. I quite like it. I want to facade up the pattern providers, but I'm not entirely sure what block to use. I feel like the cables just coming from the ceiling looks a little bit weird. If you've got a good block that I could use as a covering, maybe give me a shout, because I think that would look a little bit cooler than just having the exposed wiring, but that also works too. And as a final check, I can go into my controller and see that none of these machines here are missing channels. We've got all of our pattern providers showing, we've got all of our crafting CPUs and everything. That's all working absolutely perfectly. So auto crafting now is completely sorted until we need to actually upgrade our setups. So there was supposed to be a little smidge more of this episode, but unfortunately the hard drive that I was recording on got corrupted. Luckily, most of the clips were salvageable. The elevator build, all of the AE stuff, but it did miss out on one little thing, and I'm going to cover it at the start of next episode. But if you're familiar with this, I finally figured out something we can do for the bottom of our cave underneath that pond section. So it's a little mini spoiler for next episode, but we've reached the time limit already. So if you've enjoyed the episode, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribed and liked. Hype the video if you're on mobile, and I'll see you next time. Take care.